How's it going, everyone? Kappa Anime Joe here, and we are back with another One Piece chapter review, this time, chapter 1157, titled The Legendary Bar. And I do kind of wonder what kind of bar might they be talking about. And before we get into this, I would like to touch on the cover story, Oni Child Yamato and the Holy Inari Shrine Pilgrimage. We are up to volume 39, and Oda just has to be messing with us at this point, because we see Yamato praying to the grave of the individual who we still don't know. This is the person who was born in West Blue but was raised in Wano. And we learn that he died protecting the village from Kaido, leaving no trace of his body behind. But of course, we still don't know who it is. So hopefully Oda reveals this somewhat soon. Like, this is probably the most exciting part we've gotten of the cover story so far, and I am very curious on who it might be. And so now, getting into the chapter, we open up with a good old Rocks Pirates plunder looting. They're looting an island called Foot Colony. That is a name Oda would pick. And they are stealing quite a bit of cash. Now, the temple claims that the money was for children in need, but Big Mom, Charlotte Linlin, calls them out, saying, yeah, right, why hasn't the money been handed over yet? Clearly, you were planning on keeping it for yourselves. And so as they're making their escape, Shiki leaves Whitebeard, Kaido, and Kyo, Silver Axe, underground. And instead of raising the lift to bring them back up, he chucks a bomb down there. I don't know why he thought that a bomb was going to take out Edward Newgate, but anyway. And he said, now we all get bigger cuts. So this is typical Rocks Pirates shenaniganry. Not super surprising for Shiki to have done this. If anything, it's more comical. And the priests are freaking out. They're trying to trap the Rocks Pirates and prevent them from escaping. This is a tremendously futile effort that fails spectacularly. And we also learn that at this point in time, Whitebeard already has... Newgate, Whitebeard, already has the Guruguru no Mi. And so with it, they make a pretty easy escape. Like, he just destroys the whole temple. Probably takes out most of the island as well. So Kaido comments that he's a little bit jealous and that he can't do anything like that. And, you know, he doesn't have his dragon fruit yet, right? So he kind of says he wants a power. And Whitebeard's like, you know, are you interested in getting a power? Well, be careful. Make sure you pick wisely, because whatever you take, you're stuck with it for life. And this is something that Kaido agrees with. And we get some good comedy here. Kyo asks, who was it? Which one of you tried to ditch us down there? And Wang Ji, without missing a beat, points right at Shiki, totally calling him out for what he did. And Kyo, they have a little back and forth. He's like, figures it would be you. And Shiki is like, oh, Kyo-kun, thank goodness you survived. I was so worried about you. So Silver Axe is totally serious here, and Shiki is just playing the fool. But it is really funny. It's a very funny scene to see. Rocks, though, is basically telling him to stop the infighting, and he's mostly focused on the treasure/loot, which makes sense. That's what they're really going for. And so he starts telling him, like, all right, y'all, you gotta calm down. We're gonna get ready to set sail. But as that happens, Captain John points out that they're surrounded by the Navy. So the Marines are all around the island. And so Rocks is like, well, there ain't no point in getting ready to set sail now. Instead, we're sinking all of these Marine ships, and we are plundering everything that they have to their name. And so now we get the narrator coming in, and I'm actually just going to be the narrator for this. And what it says is, in a mere 2 years since their formation, the record of the Rocks crew spoke for itself. 16 documented raids, 76 sunken ships, 14 ports reduced to ash, 5 towns wiped off the map. One nation was even brought to ruin. 3 unprecedented violations of the Article 18 of international law, and 25 criminal records quietly erased. Even with the future pirate king, Gold D. Roger, sailing the seas, it would not be an overstatement to refer to this period as the era of rocks. And so, yeah, like, with how big we know rocks and the rocks pirates are, and from learning in the last chapter that Roger's still like the flames of youth, right? Like he's still up and coming. It really does make sense to me that this is the era of Rocks D. Zebek. And now we cut back to Harold. We're seeing Harold again in the Loki flashback. That makes sense. And he is starting to learn just how messed up and scummy the world government is. They're basically taking over and enslaving the citizens of a non-allied nation. But this is one of the nations that helped Elbaf in their time of need when they needed food. And so Harold is coming to repay the debt to those who helped him out in his time of need. And here we find out that Elbaf is now under consideration for becoming a member nation. So that goal of Harold's is getting a little closer. But here we learn that that would be jeopardized if he were to get in the way of their mission. Well, spoiler alert, Harold doesn't really seem to care about that. He basically just calls them scum and says, "You aren't human," and he attacks the ship anyway. So this puts a damper on his bid to become a member nation, but I bet this also really left a bad taste in Harold's mouth with the world government in the first place, just because of the way that they're acting. And so after this, we cut back to Elbaf, and we have Harold and Rox are drinking at Ida's tavern. And Rox is like, "Come on, Harold, let's drink in the castle." And he's like, "You're crazy." He's not letting someone with Rox's reputation into the mainland. So they're here on the outskirts. And so they're having a little bit of a conversation. Harold shaved his head. I'm not really sure why he shaved his head. It kind of does look a little silly. Rox is laughing at him. He says Garp laughed at him too. But Rox is basically making the point that, like, now, Harold, you're starting to see how messed up the world government is, how corrupt the world government is, and he's playing his cards to try to get Harold to join him still. He even mentions that Garp hates the top brass, which we know, and he would be better off as a pirate as well. I'm not sure about that, but we certainly know that Garp is not a fan of the world government and the top brass. This is why he never stepped up to being an admiral. He stopped at vice admiral because he did not want to be under the thumb of the Tenryubito. And we got a little fun scene here where Ida stabs some fun at Rox. Rox is like, "Why don't you convince Harold?" And Ida's like, "Well, if I could, I'd tell him to choose your friends wisely," which I think is a direct stab at Rox. And we know that Harold's not particularly a huge fan of the way Rox does things to begin with. And we also have a really cute scene where Loki is hanging out at the tavern. So I think he's warming up a little bit. We got Loki on one side, arms crossed. We got Hyruden on the other side, arms crossed. And then we have the girl from a few chapters ago. I didn't look up her name. She runs Ida's tavern now in the current day. And she's handing Loki a drink. And it is very, very cute to see them starting to kind of hang out a little bit and maybe get along. And I am starting to think that to some extent Loki might be slowly warming up to the idea of hanging out with Ida and being around Hyruden and some of the other kids his age, right? And I am willing to bet that Ida herself had a huge influence on that, just because no matter what Loki did, she treated him with love and kindness, which is completely unlike anything he had gotten before that point. And I really like this. We get to see a young Garp, Sengoku, and Suru talking to Kong when Kong was an admiral. This is before he becomes commander-in-chief. And probably actually before he probably goes to fleet admiral, I'm pretty sure, and then to commander-in-chief. And they're discussing the event with Harold, right? So I didn't read this part of the narrator box earlier, but basically the World Economic Journal released an article calling Harold a fraud, basically, because during his bid to try to get Elbaf to be accepted as a member nation, he also directly attacked a world government ship. So those two things don't go well together. And of course, the Morgans, which might actually not have been Morgans at this time. I don't remember how old he is. It maybe was someone else running the World Economic Journal. They're gonna release something that makes the world government look good. And so they say some of these are pretty funny. If a giant were to roll over in their sleep, people could be crushed to death. That's the power of giants. And so the Marines really seem to want Harold and Elbaf to join them. Right? Garp's like, they're fine letting them join the Navy, but that's all, huh? They can't do their own thing. I really like Sengoku's outlook here. Like, it really shows that Harold is leaving a good impact even on the Marines. So Sengoku's like, Harold is an honest man. He's trying to learn from history and change Elbaf, which is so very true. This is totally something that we have seen time and time again. So this group also thinks Harold is a good guy. Suru does mention that he's being scouted by Rox, or at least there's rumors of him being scouted by Rox, and that if he were to join them, that would mean serious trouble for everyone else, which is very, very true, right? And so Kong is like, you all make good points, but there's not really anything we can do about it. You know, the decision is, we don't know who the current fleet admiral is, or at least I don't think we know who the current fleet admiral is, but it's not Kong yet, and even this individual would not be able to make that decision, right? And so we have this group basically saying, like, we need to hurry up and make Elbaf a member nation already so that we can get the strength of the giants and their warriors onto our side. And now, and I guess I'll go back a little bit, because I missed this from when we were talking about the conversation with Harold and Rox. But Harold mentions that some of the giants from Elbaf have already joined the Marines, John Giant being the example, which we know. We saw John Giant in Marineford. And he is probably also the one that Garp is referring to, or one of the ones that Garp is referring to when he said that the world government is fine letting giants join the Marines. And so now we get to the end of the chapter, and maybe the funniest part. We learn that Shaki hung up the mantle of being the captain of the Kuja pirates, and we have a pretty funny scene of some pirates like, no, it can't be. Our dreams, they are ruined. We set sail because we dreamed of being attacked by Shaku Yaku's Kuja pirates, but alas, it cannot be. We have wasted our youth. And so that's pretty funny. Like, I actually just find it comical that there are pirates out there who set sail with the goal of being attacked by Shaki. What kind of power is that? And we're gonna see more on what she can do later on. We have Gloriosa. So Gloriosa is now with the Rox pirates, which she wasn't in the last chapter, but she is now. She's talking to Linlin, basically reading the paper and saying, like, what are you up to, Shaki? And then we have Stussy. So Stussy is also with the Rox pirates, which I'm pretty sure we knew from the Rox flashback. And she is griping about how popular Shaki is. And now we get confirmation that Stussy has her eyes on that Edward Newgate greatness. But he comes out with the cold, hard slap in the face, telling her that I've never been in love with you. So this is probably a little bit of a dynamic where Stussy is trying to get Whitebeard, and Like, we know. We know what kind of guy Edward Newgate is. He's only going to go for the things that he wants. And so he is just not having any of it. And the Kuja pirates, they rock up on Hachinosu. And here we have Shaki making landfall. All of the pirates are just bowing and opening up a path for her to walk by, hearts popping out of her eyes. And the reason she's here is not to join the Rocks pirates like Gloriosa. No, she just wants to live here for a while and chill out and be in a place where the Marines are just not going to chase her lightly or even chase her at all. And so we get Shaki's rip-off bar version 1.0. So we now know that she has a rip-off bar in Subodi Archipelago, but that was not the first one. This all started on Hachinosu during the Rocks era. So the pirates all fall into line. They clean up a nice space for her. They help her build the rip-off bar. And we learn that none of these clowns, not even Rocks, not Wang Ji, not Captain John, not even Edward Newgate, none of them stand a chance against Shaki. As soon as they walk in the bar and she's like, "Would you like a drink?" We got all of them, hearts popping out of their chest, exclaiming together in unison that she's an angel. So it is funny. It is so funny. People were clowning on Roger being brought to his knees, but now we got Whitebeard and Rocks and his crew also all being brought to their knees. And so in another scene, she's like, "Oh, I just can't open this," which obviously she could if she really wanted to. Like, she's a pirate. She's definitely physically capable of doing that. But nah, she's just messing with them all. They're clowning over like, "Oh, we'll help you." Rocks is freaking out, mouth wide open, tongue sticking out. "This place smells wonderful." So this scene was great to see. It's fun to learn that this is where Shaki got her start on the bar, but it's also just really comical to see the entirety of the Rocks crew, including the man himself, Rocks D. Zebek, totally fawning over Shakuyaku. And so the chapter ends with a very grim announcement by the Gorosei, who are still debating on whether they want to accept Elbaf as a member nation or not. And so they release a decree. If Harold wants Elbaf to be accepted as a member nation with the world government, him and the warriors of Elbaf must kill Rocks D. Zebek. And so that's what we leave off on. I am very curious to see what Harold is going to choose to do. We're going into a break next week, so there'll be no chapter. If I'm able to find time to put something together, along with working other videos, I may try to do a discussion on what I think Rocks, on what I think Harold is going to do when he hears about this, and whether or not Harold and the Warrior Giants could actually take on the Rocks crew. They definitely have a chance, but that'd be an interesting matchup. So, with that, we've reached the end of this chapter. I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you have, please leave a comment. Tell me what your favorite part is, or if I totally missed something. Like and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. And I hope that you all have an excellent rest of your day.